thank you for wishing me that happy birthday and the song. We're going to the next session, and our next session is on the high level panel. And seated here is Adora. Adora is from Meta. They used to be Facebook. They are now Meta. And this session will just be looking at the main theme of the IGF this year. And we have other panelists that will be here, but most of them are online. So please, we'll be listening to them online while she's here coordinating. So you are missing nothing because you hear them. And if you need interpretation, I think we have the headset for you to listen to the interpretation. Without much ado, I would like her to do full introduction of herself and then introduce others. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Auntie Mary. As a well-bred Nigerian, I dare not call her by her name alone. Yeah. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining this session. I regret that we're running late, and we are most likely going to have to truncate the conversation, but I hope that we can at least get as much information from the experts that we have asked to join us today to provide a good basis for the conversation going on for the next couple of days. So without further ado, let me ask if Dr. Kofi is online. Do we have Dr. Kofi online?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I'm online, thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Ajijola, are you with us as well? Mr. Ajijola, are you online? No, doesn't look like it. Okay. Professor Nee? Professor Nee, are you with us? Okay. And I'm actually going to ask Nana Kofi to come back as the representative of the Honorable Minister. I'm going to put him on the spot. I think he was hoping that he had finished his duties, but I'm going to ask him to come back in. Yeah. Yeah, please, as a representative of the minister, please. Anyway, yeah, fine. Yeah, anyway, it's fine. We have plenty of space. Yeah. Joshua, could you please just follow up with Professor Nee and Mr. Ajijola? We will move ahead. I think Auntie Mary asked me to introduce myself. Okay, very quickly, my name is Adora Ekenze, and I head public policy for Meta across West Africa. Nana Kofi, are you going to introduce yourself again?
Yes. Hello? Yes. I'm Nana Kofi Asafo-Edu. I'm the Executive Director of the Ghana Domain Name Registry.
Nana Kofi will be standing in for the Honorable Minister for Communications and Digitalization, who cannot be with us today. And online also we have Dr. Raphael Kofi, who is representing Bonkoungou. Dr. Kofi, would you like to say a couple of words?
Merci. Je suis Raphaël Kofi, je suis en charge de la direction de l'économie numérique et des postes à la commission de la CEDEAO. Et donc, dans ce panel, je représente le commissaire Dr. Zouli Bonkoungou, le commissaire en charge des technologies de l'information et des télécommunications, qui est empêché en ce moment. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. So, it's been an interesting morning. We've had some very thought-provoking presentations already. As Nana was speaking, I was furiously writing, because when I first got the title of the panel, well, there was no title. It just said a high-level panel, and to discuss the theme of this IGF. I thought, how do you break it down? How do you actually get to have a conversation with people where you truly extract what is important, what is relevant? And so I will start by saying a big thank you to Nana, because she really broke it down as to what is important, what we should be thinking about when we're thinking about digital sustainability in this region and on this continent. So, and also, Nana Kofi's recitation from the ministry of all that the ministry in Ghana and the government of Ghana has been doing and did during the pandemic to ensure that people stayed online, and continues to do to ensure that people continue to have access and are kept safe and protected and informed as they go on with their lives post-pandemic, was also a good foundation for me as I was thinking about how to structure this conversation. And on that note, I'm actually going to start with something that Dr. Kofi talked about, which was the fact that there has to be a certain level of connection where we have incredible policies and plans and strategies, starting from the African Union down to our regional organizations like ECOWAS, down to our national organizations like the Ghana Digital Transformation Strategy. And I'd like to hear from Dr. Kofi, first of all, what importance ECOWAS places on having a coordinated effort, coordination between all these strategies, and how ECOWAS is pushing to ensure that coordination remains an integral part of the implementation, and how he sees organizations like the West Africa IGF supporting such coordination.
Merci, Madame la modératrice. Je vous remercie tout d'abord pour votre question.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for your question. ECOWAS, which is the economic community of West African states, is made up of 15 countries. Some of the countries are varying levels of development. And as you may have observed during the COVID-19 crisis, we're all called upon to work, and we observed that some members of the population were marginalized because they had no access to the internet, and so children could not follow their lessons online. If they had to do consultation online, they could not. Trade online, they could not. So ECOWAS' role is basically to ensure that all these citizens, our Vision 2020 was ECOWAS of the people, and today we are working on Vision 2050, which has some essential pillars that is based on transformation and social inclusion. So the role of ECOWAS is to give directives to member states and to support them to implement these directives so as to develop the IT sector so as to enable all members of the community to have access, not only access to internet, but reliable internet, as my sister Nina has just said. If you buy data, which you cannot use because the internet is not stable, it's useless expenditure. So the objective is to have access to internet, but not only reliable access, but in terms of cost should be affordable. Affordable because we know today that access to internet is the highest in Africa than anywhere else. ECOWAS, as a regional economic community,
ECOWAS should develop the necessary
outline strategies, policies, directives, as I said,
in order to be able
to support that process.
So, we're talking about access and inclusion. ECOWAS has already adopted regulatory text on what is called access to universal service. Indeed, this is a text that is looking at harmonizing conditions which would allow most of our people to have access to communication networks within our region. That is high bandwidth, which is also at reasonable cost. That would allow for citizens to be connected. We also have discrimination among citizens of the community beyond that. Indeed, that's the reason why in 2019, we adopted a policy on access for the disabled. If you are seeking to ensure inclusion, if you want an inclusive information society, there are no segments of the society that should be left behind. This is what would enable us to take into consideration the disabled, and that way they would have access, just like abled people, access to services and internet applications. My sister talked about numeric digital literacy, rather. We are in Africa, and more specifically in West Africa, which is characterized by high illiteracy rate. This is something we need to take seriously to ensure inclusiveness. The challenges are numerous, and ECOWAS would need to coordinate activities undertaken by member states for us to be able to develop together. You see, if you want to go quickly, you have to go alone, but if you want to go far, you have to go together. It is for that reason that we're coordinating our activities so that we can gradually make progress together in order to achieve that vision of inclusive and sustainable development. I will stop here for now, and I will take the floor again when a need arises. Ataki. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kofi. Do we have Mr. Ajijola online now? Yes? No. Professor Nee? No. Okay, so I'm going to put Nana Kofi on the spot. Infrastructure. Yeah. We all talk about the need. We've seen the need for affordable, accessible, and access to the internet. Yeah. But it requires infrastructure. It requires, in some places, like Nena said, in our villages, perhaps terrestrial, in other places, Wi-Fi, in other places, broadband. What is the conversation around promoting infrastructure? And what do you see are the essentials, both from the policy standpoint and from the provider, perhaps business standpoint?
Thank you very much, Adora. Infrastructure in terms of promoting inclusion and reaching the villages and the rural areas is something that is very dear to the heart of this government and the ministry. One of the conversations that I've had, or that I know about, is the intent to introduce local roaming between the various networks. Because the idea is that if one person is on Vodafone, can you hear me? Okay. So where MTN does not get to, someone on Vodafone can then borrow the other network. That is something that I think will help to reach the last line. A lot of fiber networks and backbones have also been laid in terms of infrastructure along the lines of the country, the Eastern Corridor and such like. And so the intent is that the conversations are going on. And even just after this meeting, a gentleman introduced to me the idea of a seamless mobile gadget, which can be used to extend the networks. So both in terms of what people hold and what infrastructure is laid on the ground and what policies are being developed, a lot is going on. And the intent is there to expand the networks. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention the work of GIFEC. We have some GIFEC representatives here. I don't know whether they are still here. And they are doing a great job as one of the government agencies which is aimed at promoting inclusiveness across the board. They are doing a great job in that respect. Yeah. Thank you.
I'd like to, I'm not sure, do we have Professor Nee online now? No? Okay. Mr. Ajijola? No? Okay. I'm going to take the liberty of asking some members of the audience to join us up here. Or I'm going to call on some members of the audience to join in the conversation. Yeah. 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 The GIFEC rep here? No? Okay. Well, maybe I will just throw a question out. There's some people I know in the audience could probably contribute to this conversation. One of the things that we noticed during the pandemic and when everybody went online was, apart from the fact that there were immediately the difference between those who had access and who didn't was clear, and the need to ramp up access. We also unfortunately noticed that a lot more crime went online. We also started having more conversations about safety and personal privacy and people's understanding of what their online rights and responsibilities were and what the agencies, national and subnational agencies, were required to do to keep them safe. Yeah. When we talk about sustainability, we cannot have sustainability without safety. We cannot have sustainability without a clear understanding of how real-life threats manifest online as well. So I'd like to throw the question out. as to what do we see are the most critical, or is the most critical part of building this post-COVID resilience when it comes to safety online? Has the horse already left the stable, or do we have to go back to, like somebody mentioned, educating children when they're learning their ABCs? I was listening this morning when somebody asked about the reporting process when you've been a victim of crime online. We hear about the advantages of the Continental Free Trade Agreement, that we'll be able to trade across the entire continent freely. But what do we know about consumer rights and protections? And how are we ensuring that those will be translated in this new free trade zone? Would anybody like to weigh in on that? Okay. A for AI people? Yeah? Okay. Could somebody pass the mic?
Do I have the floor, please? Yes. I'm Emmanuel Ajimabadu, an IP expert, then staff from Ministry of Trade and Industry. And I'm also part of AA for AI, and also former membership chair for Internet Society Ghana chapter. What I want to bring some other perspective to what you were saying about the safety. We often forget about IP. I think IP must also go with our IT policies or framework that we are trying to promote. So in the area of IP, to get sustainable value for our innovations or our innovative ideas, I think we must also consider IP in further deliberations or forums. Let me give an example. There was an inventor in Ghana who invented this bamboo bicycle. Yes, and I think because he has done it and nobody has done it, he quickly posted it on the net. And there was a forum in Ghana, and some people came from outside to Ghana. We were showcasing those innovative ideas from these local people from Ghana, of which I was there. So later on, I heard that those people that came, some came from Europe. They quickly went there, registered for the bicycle, the bamboo invention. Then now it's gone out of Ghana. This was an innovative or something that is coming from here, but now it's gone. Our Ghanaian people cannot claim it. So talking about safety and sustainability, I think sometimes you must also consider IP. Yes. Before we get to your question.
I wanted to add to that what you just said, because for me, it comes down to education across the board. Whoever invented a bamboo bicycle probably does not, well, it's my wild guess, if the person knew to register the patent, then that would be the first step to protecting his idea. Because patent laws in Ghana differ from international patent laws, and then if it's already registered, then you can go and claim it outside. But I wanted to contribute to the question that Adora was asking about security. And I think that also comes down to ongoing, never-ending, continuous education again. Because one of the ways in which hackers get access to people's computers is what they call social engineering, where they can call you and with bits of pieces of information that they know about you, they can ask you other things to get extra information and then get access to your phone. If you know never to give your password out, never to give information out to anybody, you know that your bank is never going to ask you for this kind of information, then that's a very, very, very first step to security. But obviously, it's not a single aspect solution. The educational part is there, the infrastructure part is there, the software part is there, the checks and balances that are built into the software should be there, and then there should be government standards for how businesses collect information, data protection, and so it's across the board. So that's my contribution.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I have a question myself. May I? Because I'd like to learn, when we're talking about educating for security purposes, whose job is it to do the education, if I may? So like yesterday I went to the market and I had a very shocking story. One madam was at home dressing up in her privacy, and her child of 8 years took the mother's phone and started filming the mother. And after filming, he touched some buttons and the video was on the mother's WhatsApp groups. So this is me, Nena, sending nude photos of myself across my own WhatsApp group. And people are shocked, and people start calling me, like, Nena, what are you doing? And so the lady who told me the story, like, oh, please delete. Then they start calling her, delete for everybody. She said, delete what? Delete what you sent. I haven't sent anything. You know, by the time she has finished that quarrel, you know how women behave, the thing has gone far. But my question is, we need to educate the younger generation. We need to educate people in schools. We need to educate our policy people. We need Meta to do its part. At the policy level, we need to do our part. The UN is beginning a global digital compact, and I think that security is one of those. Maybe I wanted to know from the people here, where are the responsibilities in security education? It's unfortunate we can't have those security experts online. Ajijola is one of those who keeps educating wherever he goes. But at our own level, so I need to be educated, and I also need to educate. At what level are we talking about now? Who needs to educate who at what level? That's my question. Thank you very much.
I wanted to attend to the infrastructure aspect. You know, I've been part of AI conversations, and we've been advocating that these companies, the telcos, they should share their marks and those things. You know, if I'm not if I'm not able to get to one village, and you are going there, at least you must give me an access so that I can also extend my service there. But it seems the conversation is taking long, that they should share their infrastructures. So I think we can also pick it from there, that they should share. Yes.
Before the GIFEC man comes, let me also add this, that I know about 2 years ago, Cabinet has given approval for ECG to allow their electricity pylons to be used to share aerial fiber. So since the GIFEC man wants to speak, he can address that. I can see some private players rather making use of that infrastructure and not the people who really can extend it for the benefit of others. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The cabinet approval. Yeah, it's true that cabinet approval was given 3 years ago. 3 years ago. Yeah, I did the paper and submitted it through the minister. She got the approval for us. But it's been 3 years now. We have not been able to consume the arrangement because ECG keeps shifting the pool from here, there. Your issue about infrastructure sharing, I just wanted to say that we are almost there. Because Nana can bear me witness. GIFEC, under the able leadership of the Minister of Communication, we are doing 2,016 rural telephony sites across the country. And these are towers, small, micro cells that we are doing. And because of the very nature of our environment, because if you go to deploy a tower in a small community and you take only Vodafone there, somebody will say, I want MTN, somebody will say, I want Glo, somebody will say, I want whichever network. So we work with National Communications Authority, and we got an approval to do domestic roaming. So now you don't need to have any particular network in any environment. You can get the access to any network at all. And that project we have done as a pilot that we intend to use to do for all the 2016 is now paving the way for the NCA to say that going forward, all the operators should do that, not only in the rural areas, but across Ghana. Yeah. So that's the information.
Presentation, but I would like for the conversation to speak to West African issues. We are looking for, yes, we can get examples from countries, and I'm going to pull Dr. Kofi back in. But really, this conversation is, what are the key things as a region that we should be prioritizing, that the West Africa Internet Governance Forum should be looking to push and to be looking to pressure specific regulatory and policy organizations at the national and the regional and the continental level to say, we need to see action on XYZ. Now, we might be going a little bit back to say, what are the pressures? What are the most important things? Like Nena said, who needs to educate who? So if we agree that the telcos, the internet providers and companies, tech companies have a role to play, governments have a role to play, regional regulators and policy bodies have roles to play. Are they setting deadlines? What is the interaction with the national data protection agencies? Do we know what their benchmarks are for public education, for the enactment of data privacy laws, for the creation of cybersecurity agencies? Those are the things that I would like for us to think about, and hopefully we would be able to get some responses and some guidance from the members of the panel as well.
Thank you very much. My name is Igono Shuke. I'm the program manager of Nigeria IGF. Yeah, so to just put my perspective to the question that you asked, yeah. So apart from education that we've talked about, I think there's one other point that we should look at, and that's looking at safety from the perspective of malicious threat actors and vulnerabilities. Yeah. So there's this thing I'm sure we might be familiar with when you mentioned cybersecurity agencies, security operations centers. Now, I'm a cybersecurity person, so from the little research that I've done, we have very few SOCs in West Africa as a whole. So when I mention SOCs, there are ways that these SOCs will benefit West Africa, both from the business perspective and from the human perspective. From the business side, almost everything in business needs security. SOCs can provide that. Now, from the human side, almost every human needs security on the internet. SOCs can provide that. So how can we, as the IGF, West Africa IGF, encourage SOCs to come into Africa, or encourage indigenous SOCs to come out of West Africa and provide these services to West Africans, and by extension, Africa and the world? So that way we can generate more revenue, improve our digital security, and education will come. And we also look at education from the perspective of not the young ones, because almost by default, we already know these things. The old people, my parents, my grandparents, our grandparents, our parents, these are the people that need their education the most. Young people, 80% of us know these things. We just need to just brush up. But the old people are one of the biggest vulnerabilities we have in West Africa? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so let me. Okay, so since Mr. Kofi will be addressing a point, let me add this to what he'll be addressing. The ECOWAS free roaming agreement has been on the drawing board for some years now. EU Commission has implemented this. East Africa Commission has also implemented this. I heard something that this year ECOWAS will implement the free roaming agreement. May I know from where he sits what the timelines are? When are we going to have to see this? WATRA as well as ECOWAS Commission. Let me also know what kind of strategies are they putting in place to begin addressing some of these policies at the ECOWAS Commission level, where all the regulatory authorities of the various countries will work through WATRA to unify some of these policies and see to the implementation. Thank you.
Can we give Dr. Kofi an opportunity to respond to that question, please? I think it's a very crucial question. Dr. Kofi, over to you.
Merci, Madame la modératrice. Je voudrais tout d'abord.
Thank you very much indeed, moderator. I'd like to thank the various contributors, but my contribution will be in two aspects. The issue of roaming, which was raised a little earlier, and then the other issue on sensitization, cybersecurity, and data protection. To start with roaming, I did mention earlier on that ECOWAS adopts a regulatory framework which member states should implement, and that's where we have the challenge. That's where the huge challenge lies. As you're aware, the Malabo Convention, the Malabo Convention was adopted on 2014, but it's yet to enter into force. So the real issue is implementation of community texts that are adopted. So on roaming, well, it was since 2017, and member states were to implement. But you do know that we have a lot of stakeholders. We have government, regulators, and operators. The operators, because they wouldn't want to lose part of their profits, they would often resist. So when you go back to your countries, please take this matter up at the highest level. It's only the heads of state and government who can bring pressure to bear to ensure effectiveness of roaming. The process is underway. Only last April, we had a ministerial meeting and we presented a report to the ECOWAS Council of Ministers. It is our hope that this information will reach the heads of state level so that a far-reaching decision will be made so that roaming will become a reality. We have a partial implementation because of the collective efforts of ministries of communication as well as regulators. We reach out to them so that they can encourage or promote this activity. I would therefore like to thank Ghana. Ghana is working in collaboration with Cote d'Ivoire and Guinea. So as far as coordination is concerned, they are the heart. Even currently, Ghana is working on all the aspects that have to do with fraud that were raised. So we're working with regulators and member states to ensure that roaming becomes a reality. But as I mentioned earlier on, we have to have a strong decision. You know, when heads of state decide, are firm, no operator can sidestep the decisions. They would have to fall in line. So it is a strong guidelines that will enable us to achieve full roaming service in our region. Something that I always say is that roaming is not for those of us who are in a position to pay. It is for our relatives, it's for our mothers and others. The trade flows between Abidjan and Lagos represent 60% of trade within the region. And we have our sisters, mothers that ply the road to Lagos and back. We have cousins and others who travel by road from Abidjan to Bamako, from Lagos to Dakar. And they spend 2-3 weeks on the road. So if they had free roaming, which is within the ECOWAS vision, this is something that they can work. They can speak to their families whilst they are away. This is what we call ECOWAS of peoples. We take advantage of existing opportunities within our region, and amongst the various issues, we have roaming. So this is something that we're working on. It is our hope that at the next summit, the decision from the Authority of Heads of State will be handed down. Now, to come back to digital sustainability, what I'd like to say is that we've had sensitization in ECOWAS since 2010 on this issue. You see, the initial text on cybersecurity started in 2010. We had 2 supplementary on electronic transaction and the other on data, personal data. Since we're talking about data, I would like to dwell on personal data protection. Each member state is supposed to establish an authority which will be responsible for personal data protection. It is a crucial point. I can assure you that several member states, I don't know the exact number, but there are several member states that have put in place such authorities responsible for personal data protection. Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, Mali, Nigeria. All these countries have put in place such authorities. So what is outstanding is to see to what extent at the regional level we can put together a regional authority. But these are things that we need to be considered moving forward. When it comes to data security, there is an agenda, and which we have 2 pillars, 2 major pillars, which are resilience and the fight against cybercrime. So, who needs to be educated, really? The issue of cybercrime is something that is collective responsibility. We have to educate each other on these matters. And on the implementation of the cybersecurity agenda has a strong component, which is sensitization of the wider populace. It is this population which is indeed the source of the problem. Somebody, and Inena, has cited examples. I can cite a few more. There are people who give their mobile money code to their son, and their son reveals it to their friends. Then they realize that their account has been emptied. So sensitization or education for the general populace is a crucial point. And this is something that all stakeholders should take care of in the schools, in companies, within civil society, within government establishments, ministries, and the rest. So this has to be done. Indeed, we have developed digital sensitization tools. When we have activities that have to do with cybercrime, we would disseminate them so that the member states are able to replicate at the national level. So there are many actions that we're undertaking. We are providing support currently to member states to put in place laboratories for digital investigations, which will allow for prosecution of cyber criminals and also for it to serve as a deterrent. In this area, we are providing equipment to member states for digital investigation. We're also training the staff, investigative police service, the CIDs and the rest are being trained. Yeah. We also are providing support to the member states for them to put in place emergency teams, emergency response teams. Indeed, we have adopted 2 regional instruments here. A strategy on the fight against cybercrime in order to build resilience for the systems. Not only that, but we also have a policy for protection of infrastructure. Now, where you're talking about data protection, we want to put in place data centers, but it is a crucial infrastructure arrangement. An NISP is critical, and we need security for them. Those policies that are rolled out are supposed to give guidance to the member states to ensure that. It also gives us guidance about how we can ensure cooperation. The internet is a global instrument. You can use a computer from Nigeria or Togo to attack others in Latin America. So it is a collective responsibility. The collective responsibility which requires that we collaborate and for us to ensure efficiency in our fight against cybercrime, but also to ensure security for our computer systems, our critical infrastructures. And that is indeed the reason why ECOWAS appeals, or rather is appealing to member states to ratify the various regulations, the various protocols that are in place. We are appealing to the member states to ratify them. I mentioned the guideline of cybercrime, the supplementary act on protection of personal data. And fortunately for us, ECOWAS is a region that has made a lot of progress in certain areas. Almost all member states have moved on to implement the 3 instruments I mentioned. At the African level, we do have the Malabo Convention. We have to reach out to the 15 member states out of the 54, so that we're able for it to enter into force, to allow for cooperation amongst within the African population. We have more member states from ECOWAS that have ratified as compared to other regions because of the sensitization. Now, whilst we await for the UN, it is the Budapest Convention that is in force. And there again, we encourage our member states to ratify in order to enforce international collaboration. Indeed, the Budapest Convention is indeed a mechanism. It's a mechanism which is clearly stipulated in the convention. But you can have reservations and to say that some of the articles are not acceptable to you because they are at variance with your national legislation. The UN ratified, but they issued reservations on extradition of American cyber criminals. So, for me, sensitization should be at all levels, and everybody should be involved in it. All the youth that are participating in our IGF, you should explain to people. You having a drink, for instance, and somebody is doing the wrong thing on their phone, for instance, you should be able to sensitize them so that they, in turn, can sensitize others. So, Madam Moderator, those are a few issues that I wanted to put on the table for consideration by the participants in terms of activities that are being undertaken by ECOWAS, and this to ensure that we have digital inclusion, not only that, but also sustainable digital inclusion.
Thank you so much.
Over to you, Madam.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kofi. That was a very comprehensive response, and there are several key things that I personally took away. The necessity for pressure to be maintained, or advocacy to be maintained with national regulators, national legislators, to make sure that not only do we accede to these various protocols, but also implementation of these obligations that we have signed up to as well. And to make sure that we continue to advocate for better oversight and better connectivity between these various policies that will help foster the system. I gather that Mr. Ajijola is online with us now. So I'm going to switch to the second part of the topic. And I'm predicating that on something that the gentleman from Nigeria IGF said. And I'm going to go to the word innovation. We all know, yes, what we can do now with the digital space. And we have also seen an explosion in opportunities and creativity through this digital space as well. So my question is, when we are talking about national economic and social development, when we understand, like Nena said, that we have the numbers of young people, when we recognize, like the gentleman from Nigeria IGF said, that the young people, they already know how to use it, and they're brimming with ideas. He's just come up with an idea about having indigenous socks. What are the things that are essential to create an enabling and supportive environment to foster and promote innovation as we move forward? I'm going to pull in Mr. Ajijola on this now.
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, let's go to first principles. Innovation itself is actually the taking of outputs from research and development to market. This, technically speaking, is what innovation is about. Colloquially, we would say that innovation really is about thinking differently. So when we think about issues relating to sustainability, certainly the innovation required is that we must have trust in it. We simply will not trust a platform we will not use a platform or infrastructure we do not trust. And part of this change in mindset and thinking, the innovative part, if I may quote Mikko Hyppönen, he famously said that we are no longer securing computers, we're securing society. So it's not simply about the bits and bytes and the technical jargon, but it's about people, the roadside food vendors, the vulcanizers, the mechanics, because they are actually using this technology. And so our thinking, whether it's policy, strategy, and the like, has to be innovative in that sense. Another area of our thinking, and again, this is a bit skewed to the cybersecurity part, is that we must appreciate that cybersecurity, the criminals, the cyber criminals, operate at the speed of light, while law enforcement moves at the speed of law. And this is something that Barry Rivendra Green in Singapore had mentioned a few years ago, and it really struck me as quite profound. Added to this, again, in terms of our thinking, we must understand that we generally perceive cyberspace or cybercrime as borderless. And that's because the perpetrators work in an apparently seamless environment. However, what many of us don't appreciate is that every country has its own cyberspace, which is defined by its national infrastructure. So to that extent, for the good guys, for the law enforcement, unfortunately, cyberspace is borderless. So the implication. are that the threat actors carry out their activities in an apparently seamless environment, while law enforcement operatives really are constrained by jurisdiction. So back to innovation and taking things to market. Part of what we have to do to gain some traction and sustainability in terms of our digital ecosystem and innovations around it. Again, coming back to cybersecurity, which is where I come from, we must appreciate that by 2025, the global cybersecurity solutions market is estimated to hit about $280 billion US. In the next 10 years, the next 10 years, Cyrano in Kenya has estimated that the Africa cybersecurity solutions market will hit between 15 and 30 billion. Now remember, innovation is about taking the output of research and development to market. So it means that market is going to be there. For us in West Africa, since we're at the West African IGF, we must ask ourselves the question, for us to participate in this market, is it going to be a foreign exchange drain because we are purchasing solutions? Or are we going to invest in the research and development and take the output of that investment to market as innovations so that that market becomes a foreign exchange gain? Can we create jobs from this? Can we generate wealth? And certainly as a byproduct, can governments generate taxes? In addition, another area of challenge is that ISC Squared in 2021 now has estimated from their global survey that there is a shortage of cybersecurity professionals. Now, I'm not talking about the IT economy generally, just this one component of 2.1 million worldwide. Now, we have a lot of young people, particularly from sub-Saharan Africa and West Africa. Unfortunately, they die crossing the desert. They die crossing the Mediterranean. And when they get to Europe, many of us become a permanent underclass. Can we innovatively build their capacity so that they have value, so that they will be flown first class? Or better still, can we build our internal structures and infrastructure platforms and capacities so that these same young West Africans can actually work in their towns and villages? Can they work in Tema, not even Accra? Can they work in Grand Gede County in Liberia? Can they work in many of these rural areas or secondary towns and cities? Because they have the connectivity, because they have the knowledge, and earn dollars and euros while staying at home. The truth of the matter, I believe, is that many of us in West Africa and around the world, we don't need handouts, we need income. And so this is where the imperatives of this innovation come. There are additional perils that I think we need to touch on. First of all, we must discourage digital authoritarian tendencies through good governance. As Idi Amin famously said, I can guarantee you free speech, but I cannot guarantee you freedom after the speech. And I think we need to leverage civil society so that we can hold governments accountable, but also hold the private sector accountable. So we must encourage our civil society brethren to ensure that good governance is part, of our philosophy and work. So this is, again, we know that unfortunately in West Africa, there are several governments that do have cyber interception capabilities. Indeed, in Nigeria, we have observed with some concern that state governors, that is at the sub-national level, are investing in these technologies. Now, there's been one instance where the governor was actually monitoring the digital exchanges of an opponent's wife, an opponent's spouse, not even just the opponent. They even monitor their own loyalists to make sure they are on track. And here we see that there needs to be improved governance on personal identifiable data management, and certainly issues around digital privacy and, yes, national digital data sovereignty. But the thing is that our governments sometimes are also a single point of failure. We also need to be able to build trust. We need stability. Now, stability does not connote stagnation, but it does connote some level of predictability that when we do seek to access these platforms and technologies, they are available and they do perform as expected. So we need to ensure, yes, there is access, but I can assure you, if I do not trust the aircraft that would fly me from Abuja to Accra, I probably will not go on that aircraft or airline. In fact, I might prefer to even go on a donkey if that were feasible. So access, while important, needs trust for it to work. We also have to improve, generally speaking, our value proposition. And one of the things I would ask us to look at is, can we learn from public health? For example, can we learn from the COVID pandemic to establish credible early warning systems? The cyber equivalents of the Centers for Disease Control that we've now seen strengthened in the public health sector across the continent and West Africa in particular, can we emulate that in the cyber domain? And I think this is something we really need to try and work on and work towards. I would also ask that, or appeal to many of us listening today, West Africa, your individual countries, Africa in general, needs a generation of cyber diplomats. This is because there are a number of ongoing discussions, especially at the United Nations, on the development of global cyber norms. Now, norms by themselves are soft laws, and soft laws generally are voluntary. But as we've seen with the norms of the sea, norms of outer space, nuclear norms, they evolve over time into hard international legislation, which you have to obey or you become a pariah. We are not at the table, or we are not sufficiently at the table. We've seen in history where there was the Great Berlin Conference in 1884. Our ancestors, Africans, were not at the table, and this is why Africa is divided the way it is. So we do need to be at this table so that we're at foundation in terms of our thinking, our culture, our output, our own ethics and sensibilities, while these norms are being developed and as they mature into hard international law. I would also like to just touch on the issues of capacity, capability, and capacity building. And there are basically 4 areas that I would just like to touch on within this.
Sorry, Hakeem, can I give you 2 minutes to round up? I'm really sorry.
Yes, ma'am. I will try in 1.5 if possible.
Thank you.
Number 1, we need to develop some kind of online West Africa Cyber Essentials program that targets the roadside food vendor, because those mamas, those akara sellers, those vulcanizers, those tea sellers, they are digital. They actually are digital Africans or digital West Africans. So they must be empowered to practice and employ basic cyber hygiene and improve the cyber culture. We also need to work together to develop syllabus for those cross and promotion points within, for example, public service, the military. Because in the public service, before you move from certain categories to a higher category, you take some courses, you attend some kind of public service academic institution. We need to insert at least short courses on some of these topics. Of course, at the tactical operational level, the syllabus will be more tactical, but when you want to move into directorship cadre or permanent secretary cadre or director general cadre, they should be more strategic. The third thing we need to do is to support and empower our women with with opportunities and programs. Frankly, no modern society, including our own, will make significant progress without 50% of its population are women. And in many of our countries, we also alienate another 47% our youth. I would also urge, coming back to the innovation question, that we really strive to work with academia and civil society and others to generate accurate statistics and empirical evidence so that African decision makers can rely on this type of evidence to make credible decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hakeem. I'm quite upset that you only came in at the last minute. You should have been here earlier. But thank you so much for this insightful contribution. We are going to have to round up now. Yes, people are looking very hungry and tired in the room. So there has been so much, and just things that stand out. The issue of trust, the issue of advocacy, the issue of community, the issue of education, the issue of accountability. I think we have provided enough fodder for the next 2.5 days. I wish you all a most wonderful and fruitful conference, and look forward to seeing the results and the energy and the advocacy that will come out of this. Thank you very much. Thank you to all our panelists. Dr. Kofi, thank you so much for your participation and your comments. They are greatly appreciated. Mr. Ajijola, thank you very, very much. We appreciate you joining us. Nana Kofi, thank you. I'm sure on behalf of the ministry, they will be, I can say that you are an able representative. You did them proud. Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. The program is still ongoing. I just have some few announcements. You all have some goodies. We'd encourage that tomorrow, if you could come in your T-shirt, that would be lovely. Outside this auditorium, you see the nurses' station. They are checking everything, sugar, blood pressure. If you have any issues, you could talk with them. From here, we're going to have lunch. And lunch is on the 3rd floor on the other side. So we all get down to the ground floor, and then we walk through the reception, and then we take the elevator to the 3rd floor, and that's where the terrace is. That's where lunch is being served. Is it open now?
Yeah. So maybe we spend an hour and we come back after an hour.
Yes.